Morning everyone, or yeah, still morning just about. So as Jess says, my name's James Clarke. I live in a place called Ashmore Park in Wolverhampton, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Hub. The Hub is a community centre, library and fitness centre which opened almost 12 months ago. I'm going to take you back a little bit just to tell you how I became involved with the Hub. As Jez has mentioned, I run a hyperlocal website with my wife Steph over there called wv11.co.uk. We started this website in 2009. It's basically very similar to the ethos of Dignity is Good, which Pam's just been talking about, in terms of it's a website where we talk about community news and events, share news, ask people their opinions, and generally talk about the area. Inevitably, after starting this website, a couple of years down the line, some of the groups that were coming to us and saying, can you share our news, can you share our events, ended up saying, do you want to join our board, do you want to join our committee, do you want to join our panel? And not being very good at saying no, we soon found ourselves actually involved in many of the groups that we were sharing the news and information of. One of which was a community association, Ashmore Park Community Association. At the time, the Community Association was running a very old and tired community centre on our estate. It had moved premises a couple of times and they'd moved into what was actually a former daycare centre. So we got involved probably 2011 kind of time, and 2012 came and there was the Jubilee. Generally, the Community Association was staffed by volunteers who were all retired, and so the Jubilee was a big deal to them, probably a bigger deal to it was me at the time, and they were very insistent that we put on a big event. So we set about planning a huge community fun day in the local area. We used the local school grounds. We were able to raise funds and pull favours, which meant that we could put on this huge event that was completely free to the local community. We had rides, arts activities, competitions, fancy dress, local bands and dance groups, all the kind of things you'd expect. We also had a big lunch where everybody came together and ate together. And this event, which was primarily kind of led by the Community Association, actually involved a collaboration within the community, lots of different groups. We had tenants and residents, we had the local police team, we had a school. They all came together to put on a big event. We had 1,200 people turn up at the event on the day, which blew us all away. We were expecting maybe a couple of hundred if we were lucky. It didn't rain, which helped. And it was really an insight into how, if different groups within the community come together, they can achieve something. So fast forward to 12 months into 2013, Wolverhampton City Council is facing some fairly significant cuts in funding, and in light with that, they basically were reviewing all of their services, which included community centres, libraries, youth centres, so on and so forth. So we were basically approached with a proposal from the council. On our estate, we were lucky enough to have a community centre, a library and a youth centre at the time, and they basically said to us, we are going to have to cut things one way or another. And what they proposed was a hub. So they were proposing to close the existing community centre building that we were in, which was, to put it lightly, in need of quite a lot of work and maintenance, to close the local library, which was in a similar situation, and to move everything into the existing youth centre building, refurbish it and have a hub. So you'd have all the services under one roof. We were immediately for the idea because we could see the benefit to having a newer, refurbished facility that everyone could use, and also the fact that with 3 buildings, sooner or later, 1 or 2 of them were going to disappear if the cuts were as hard as we were looking at. So we formed a working group, again collaborating with different people within the community, tenants and residents, library users group, the youth club itself, and basically began planning what was to become the hub. During that time, we probably went through about 18 months of planning and discussions about what we wanted in the building, how the building should be formed, how it should be run, so on and so forth. During that time, unfortunately, the council actually decided to cut all youth service funding and close every single youth club in Wolverhampton. We have now no youth clubs. They are building an all-singing, all-dancing city centre youth club that they're expecting all the kids from throughout the city to travel into the city centre and use and then go home on the bus at night. We'll see how that works out, but I have a feeling it probably won't be particularly popular. In the meantime, we kept planning for what we wanted to happen at the hub, and how the building was going to work. So essentially what we now have as of September last year is this facility you can see here. It houses a community centre with multiple rooms for activities and for hire, a library in the new glass extension, which is actually the middle bit of the building, and on the left as you look at it here we have a big hall, changing rooms, showers and a full-size sports hall. The left hand and the right hand end of the building existed previously, and the council basically built an extension to link what was two buildings and make it into one bigger building. Now, it sounds like we all came together, collaborated, and it was plain sailing, and that definitely wasn't the case. At the time, we had a tenants and residents association who were hell-bent on the library being left alone. No matter what was being proposed, they didn't want anyone to touch the library. So before we knew it, there was a petition with getting on for 1,000 signatures to save the library. So we had to spend quite a lot of time changing the perception and actually convincing people that they weren't going to close your library, you're actually going to get a new library, and if you don't go for this, then you may well eventually lose a library and the community centre and your youth centre. So it wasn't an easy task. We had to do a lot of kind of discussions with local groups and local users. We actually produced our own flyers that we put out there explaining what the proposals were, because as I'm sure some of you may have experienced, as soon as a council consultation start, people immediately think, okay, the council aren't going to do what I want, they're going to do what they want, they've made their minds up. So we had to convince people that, you know, there were local people being involved in the decision-making process here, and also convince people that they're not just going to shut the library. In one point, there was a rumour going around that they were going to shut the library and put the books in the youth centre, and people would have to go and take books off the shelf in the youth centre while the kids were using the youth centre. It was never going to happen, but it was one of the perceptions that we had to kind of break. I'm pleased to say we were able to do that, and we eventually got everybody on board, and with support of local councillors and local people, we were at the front of the queue for community hubs in Wolverhampton when the programme began. So 12 months of building work took place. I was on site every month, going to site meetings, seeing what the builders were doing, checking things were going as they should do, and we were able to open the centre in September last year. It seemed like that was a great kind of landmark in terms of getting the building, and it certainly was, but it was actually where the work really started, and I think that was something that maybe some people weren't quite so aware of. The community association that I'm a trustee of is essentially a charity. We're a registered charity, and we're currently required by the City Council, who own the building, to cover 50% of the running costs of the building. Now this is a sliding scale. The percentages are going to go up over time. It's most likely that we'll be paying kind of 10% more every 2 or 3 years. So we got this new facility. It had been refurbished. So we've got multiple meeting rooms, we've got an IT suite, a library, we've got a community gym, we've got a sports hall, we've got changing rooms. We now have to fill it and basically create some kind of income for the building. So what we've done is try to do that. How we've tried to do that is increase the spectrum of activities that take place in the building. Traditionally, the community centre down the road had a craft group, a knitting group, an art group, and the good old tabletop sale twice a year, which was great, and they did it very well, and they were able to bring in quite a lot of retired people in the area and give them somewhere to do something. But what we realised was this building is probably 10 times the size of the previous building, and in order to be able to sustain it and pay for the running costs, we had to broaden what we could offer. So to give you an example of what we've done since we've moved into the building, we've opened a community cafe. It's open from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Monday to Friday. It's staffed completely by volunteers, but we're able to offer bacon sandwiches, salads, jacket potatoes, tea, coffee, that kind of thing, light refreshments. And in doing that, we're actually bringing people into the building now who just use the cafe. So even if they don't want to take part in the activities that are there, they've got somewhere that they can come, they can spend time with other people, and they can get very cheap food. A cup of tea currently costs you 40p and a bacon sandwich is £1.60, I think. So the prices are kind of rock bottom in terms of what we're charging, but the idea isn't to make money, the idea is to bring people into the building, and the cafe has been a real kind of facilitator in that, because people come in for a cup of tea or a sandwich and they then say, oh, there's a gym here, I might join the gym, or oh, there's a library here, I hadn't used the library for a long time, I'll start loaning books or using the IT suite or taking part in a class. So it's a great way of exposing people in the building, exposing people to what else is going on in the building. Along with that, we've tried to put on more kind of all ages events and family focused events. So Steph had the great idea just over 12 months ago of buying a film licence. If you're in a community building or community space, you can actually buy a licence for a couple of £100, which will allow you to show the vast majority of major and minor film distributors' films in your building. So we set up a family film club. So the last Saturday of every month, we put on a film, and it allows people to come and see a film for free. The only way that we fund that essentially is that to join the association you have to pay £2 a year. So they pay their £2 a year and they can come to as many film screenings as they want. And we've currently had things like Frozen, we've had School of Rock, we've shown Jumanji, some older films, but then a lot of Disney films as well. And it's proved really popular with young families who want to bring along their kids. They can come, £2 a year. We sell refreshments from the cafe, so if they want to buy refreshments, they can, and that again helps the charity. But if they want to bring their own, they can. And it's certainly a lot cheaper than the £7 or £8 it costs you to go to the Enorma Dome down the road at the moment. Another thing we've done is put on regular seasonal events. Again, traditionally it was a tabletop sale in the summer and a tabletop sale at Christmas. We've now put things on, like we had a pancake day event where we were selling pancakes in the cafe. The volunteers that day had a combined age of, there were only 4 of them I think, a combined age of 378, and they literally made 100 plus pancakes in a day. But we had school kids in, we had people coming in off the street, and it raised a little bit of money for us, but it gave the community something to come together around and gave them something to do. We've similarly had Christmas events and Easter events. We did an Easter egg hunt. Christmas, somebody dressed up as Santa and did story time. It was rather embarrassing because Santa was a bit hungover that day, but it all went to plan. It all went to plan in the end. It did remind me of Bad Santa, if anybody's seen that film, though. There was certain shades of that. We've also put on things like fish and chip supper. This was something that the retired folks did at the old centre, and once a month they have a fish and chip supper where they've done a deal with a local chip shop to get a pensioners deal cheap. They play a game of bingo, and again do a little raffle. That now has in excess of 50 people turn up every month, and it is literally 50 shades of grey in more ways than one. But it's proved very, very popular, and we've now got younger people saying, oh well, maybe I'll come to the next fish and chip supper. And Steph and I actually attended our first one recently, so I can see that maybe expanding. Not everything's around food. We've talked about food a lot, but I'm, as you can probably see, a firm believer that food brings people together. So to counter the food, we've also got this community gym. Now, we were very lucky to get some subsidised funding from the City Council to buy some Easy Line gym equipment. An Easy Line gym is basically a gym for people who don't like going to the gym, which again works for me. And essentially, we have 10 core pieces of equipment. You spend an hour in the gym, you move around the 10 pieces and you get a full cardiovascular workout in that 1 hour. We charge £2 a session for the gym. So it's your £2 a year to join and then £2 a session to use the gym, and it's hugely popular. We currently have just under 400 people who have registered from the local community to use the gym. Sessions running 5 days a week. We're now expanding to a weekend slot as well. So it's proved very popular. So you can have a bacon sandwich and then go and work it off in the gym, or vice versa, you can wear yourself out in the gym and then go and have a bacon sandwich. That's a little bit, telling you just a little bit about the kind of activities that we've put on. And as I say, they've mainly been aimed at broadening the kind of spectrum of activities so that the audience is wider. How we've done that. Traditionally, it would be a case of sticking a poster up and hoping that people basically find out what's going on. Myself and Steph both come from digital backgrounds, so websites and social media are a big thing for us. So we have launched a website for the Hub, we have a Facebook page, we have Twitter, and we've really pushed the activities that are happening within the building and further afield over our social media platforms. We've set up a mailing list as well, an email mailing list, to encourage people to join that. So people sign up, they get a semi-regular email telling them what's on. And we have found that that's actually helped in that aim of getting to a different audience, because that audience, that age group of people, are people who are more likely to be online, whereas the traditional kind of pensioners audience are less likely to be online, but they're not there at all. So we've used that to kind of promote what we're doing. One thing that we do in terms of raising revenue, because all these kind of fun activities are great, but we still do have to pay half the bills, as I said. One thing that we've done is we really push the fact that the facilities are available for hire, so you can hire pretty much every room in the building, and all the groups that come and put activities, whether it's an art class, a craft class, a sewing class, a photography club which we've recently set up. They all pay a charge to hire the rooms. We're not able to basically let anyone have a room for free anymore. When we were fully subsidised by the council 5-6 years ago, yeah, you could get a free room, no problems. But we have aimed to try and keep the prices down where possible, and that has actually had a benefit because it's allowed local businesses, people who are looking to start up as instructors for Zumba or for yoga, to get somewhere that they can start their classes that isn't as expensive as a commercial building would be. They offer a benefit to the community, everybody wins. In terms of volunteering, something else we've done, we've tried again to get younger volunteers into the building because we've got some extremely dedicated pensioners. I'm 35, most of them are twice my age, and I do not know where they get the energy from, quite frankly. They put me to shame. They are just incredible. But it's also, we're also very aware that if a young person comes to the building, particularly a teenager, and they see a building full of grannies, as they see it, it puts them off. So we've encouraged younger people to get involved. And I think the key to doing that is often when people are looking for volunteers, they'll put a sign up or put a call out saying, we need volunteers, we really need you to volunteer, will you come and volunteer? And if you're of working age, you've got a job, you've got kids, that's a very open-ended commitment, and a lot of people are kind of wary of that commitment. So what we've tried to do is ask people for bite-sized commitments. So instead of saying, will you volunteer, we've said, could you spend an hour in the cafe on a Tuesday morning? Could you spend an hour or 90 minutes running the youth club with us one evening? And actually give people a kind of specific amount that you ask them to commit. And we've actually found over time that we've actually got a bigger group of people committing now to volunteering of different ages because we're asking them for specific things as opposed to this open-ended, come and volunteer, and they have no idea what they're kind of committing to. We've also essentially kind of try to create a slightly more business-like attitude, and I use that term very loosely because at the end of the day this is a community facility. Its key aim is to provide a place for social activities to take place. But for example, the Christmas event where we had a story time, a film and a goodie bag, normally that would have been free to attend. We charge 50p per child because we want to give people something to do, but also make the point there is value to this, and if you make everything free, people don't value it as much as if you charge them a small amount, just a token amount. You know, we've pushed the fact that the building is staffed completely by volunteers apart from our library, and people seem very appreciative of that and probably didn't realise that previously. Finally, I guess I'm going to talk about the financial value, because at the end of the day, as great as all this is, we do have to cover costs, and there has to be some financial value to the council for them to keep investing the money. They invested around £1 million in the refurbishment of the building, so it wasn't a small amount of money, hence us having to then pay 50% of the running costs. So we did a little bit of an audit recently. We sat down and we looked at all the regular sessions that we're running that are run by volunteers, all the regular activities, all the irregular activities, all the one-off activities, and we came up with a figure. We average 387 hours of volunteer time per week in the building across a year. Now the building's open pretty much 49, 50 weeks a year, so that's worked out, 387 hours per week across the year. If we were to work that out at minimum wage, it would cost someone £125,000 plus to employ people to be in the building for that amount of time. So we've basically come up with that figure and waved it in the council's face and shouted it wherever we can that, you know, we're essentially worth 125 grand to the local economy, and that's why you should still keep subsidising the amount that you do and still keep us going. A local councillor told me recently that the council makes around £300,000 in business rates from the local high street. Just over that. That's roughly what the high street is worth to the council. So we can now argue that we're worth a third of the local high street as volunteers. And I think if you are volunteering and you are in a situation where you're relying on funding or subsidies, it's important to tell people what your value is, because if you don't, they won't pay any attention. But if you shout from the rooftops, you know, they can't really ignore you. And again, I think finally, the takeaway from this for me, apart from the fact that we've now got a great facility that allows people to do lots of activities very cheaply, we've got a space that people can hire and start businesses from cheaply, and we have a financial value, is that we've shown that by sticking together and fighting for what you want, the community's voice can be heard. A lot of people, as soon as a consultation was launched about this idea, were, well, they've made their mind up, they'll do what they want, what we say won't come into it, but we kind of bucked the trend in terms of that, and we proved prove to people that if you do collaborate and come together as opposed to fight each other in your little corners, you can actually get what you want and achieve what you're looking for, which is this fantastic facility. We now have to sustain it, keep it going, but I think we've got a very strong foothold to do that. And because we came together and worked together, we're able to show people that your voice is heard and you can get what you want. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what I'm doing in terms of the hub. If you've got any questions, give me a shout. The estate that it's on, the population's around 6,000 people, but there is a wider area we're in, which is probably about 30,000 people. So there are we've actually got 3 hubs in Wensfield, which is the wider urban area. Ours is the biggest and the most active, so we've got quite a pull, and we're also fortunate that we're actually in a corner in terms of boundaries. We're in Wolverhampton, but we're in the corner with Walsall and South Staffordshire, so we do find already that we've got people coming from the other neighbouring areas into our centre to use the facilities there.
Can you tell us a bit more about your economic plan? Because having managed buildings and stuff in the past, I know how expensive they can be. And sometimes, you know, it's if you have to take over that building at some point, the stuff that you're doing is good, but a building like that's going to cost you a few bob to keep on going in the future. So what is the economic sustainability of that building, and are the community buying into that it may cost them a little bit more than the £2 a year to keep that building going?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of our plan, at the moment we're negotiating with the council over a lease to occupy the building. They own the building, they pay for things like caretaking, cleaning, and then we pay 50% of that essentially. Long term, it should stay that way or thereabouts. To say our percentage may increase. Their terms are less than favourable, so at the moment we're a bit of a stalemate with them in terms of how we're going to go forward with that. But the plan is that over time, if our percentage increased, we have to look at increasing some of the costs. The fact is we've started very low. I mentioned some of the prices in the cafe. You know, your £2 a year membership, it's £2 to use the gym per hour. They're all prices, even in the area that we're at, which is relatively high in terms of deprivation. We could put prices up over time, still provide the facilities and still make them affordable, I think. We haven't done a lot in the way of grant funding up until now. We've had a couple of small grants to put on specific things, but it's not something we've needed to do, and I think we're in a position as a charity where we can do that. We could bring in more grant funding if we needed to sustain that. They've done quite a lot of work on the building to make it efficient in terms of we had a whole new heating system, new insulation, new windows, new doors. We've got a living roof on the library, which you can't actually see there. That was something that I was sat in a meeting with a council architect and I jokingly said, I don't suppose we could have a green roof. And they kind of went, yeah, okay, which I nearly fell off the chair at because I was most surprised that they were even willing to entertain that. The sports hall, which you can't really see on the left-hand side here, goes back on the left-hand side. They've installed solar on that. So within 7 years, it should be electricity neutral in terms of the amount of power we're generating. So again, going forwards, there has been some foresight and things put in place which will hopefully mean that should the financial situation change, A, the running costs will come down over time, and B, we have got some wriggle room to put prices up should we need to do that. At the moment, we're not really pushing it for commercial use. It's mainly community use, but we do get some commercial use. We had like Royal Mail book a room for 2 days for some training, and that was really financially agreeable with us because we charge them a commercial rate. So we could push it in a more commercial sense should we need to, essentially.
I was just going to ask in terms of like the open times. I know you said that you're open from Monday to Friday from 9 till 5. Because I was thinking like this is like during work hours. Are you open on the weekends as well?
We are, yeah. The hours are flexible. Essentially, the library has a member of staff in there 6 days a week. Some days it's a full day, some days it's a half day. The cafe that we're running, which is volunteer run, is open 10 till 3 5 days a week. But we'll open on Saturdays if there's an event on. The building can be used at the weekends. It's often open in the evenings. A lot of the classes that run, we've got like a youth club, a photography club. A lot of the sports activities are open in the evening. So we don't have fixed opening hours, which is a little bit confusing to some people because they see the sign for the library and think, oh, it's only open that time. But it's essentially, we can be open any time from 8 till 10 or 11 at night. Yeah, it really just depends. And again, we have the rooms are hired out for children's parties as well and weekends. So we have a lot of like engagement parties, kids parties, golden wedding anniversary parties, those kind of things. So it's very flexible. We're lucky in that terms. We're licensed, I think, from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. most nights. So it really depends on what's going on when the building's open.
Yeah.
One more quick one. Anybody else on?
Anyone else?
We can move on and make.
Oh, go on over here.
Just thinking back to you got WV11, my son Wolverhampton by the way, you've got WV11, I see both yourself and stuff, got a lot of community events and workshops. I'm just thinking in terms of hours.
Yeah.
What's your voluntary activity commitment?
In terms of the hours we put in, obviously it varies from week to week depending on what's going on. Our hours are included in that 387 average of a week. I can't remember what I put down on the form as my amount, but it was probably quite a lot. But the good thing is we have a committee that runs the building. There's 22, 23 people on the committee, and there's probably a dozen people there who are the kind of core volunteers who are there day in, day out. So we are fortunate in that we have a wide group or a larger number of people. So sometimes people will be there every day of the week, sometimes they're over there 1 day a week, sometimes they'll go away for a fortnight, and we basically cover each other. So in terms of individual, it's very hard to kind of put a figure on it. If it were a job, I would say I probably do it part-time. And I do work, I'm self-employed, and I'm fortunate in that my work's flexible, that I can be flexible like that. So yeah, I wouldn't say 50% of my time, but it just depends what's going on. You're probably better to ask Steph, because she probably notices when I'm not home, more than I do. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jane.
Thank you. Cheers.